Hi, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Matt.
and this is
The Dead Do Not Podcast.
a Lexx Rewatch.
Just a bumbling security guard in the great wide galaxy. Till one day he was dealt a different card in the form of a key. This key controlled the most powerful weapon ever made. Now he had it by sheer accident, or maybe it was fate. What a cast of characters all on the spacecraft traveling. A woman named Zev who escaped from her programming. The disembodied robot head that got brainwashed instead. And Kai, the always glum undead assassin. In this space adventure you never know what comes next. So come join the crew for tales of sci-fi, laughter, and sex on the Dead Do Not Podcast. Watching
Okay, first.
Do you mean the elephant in the room?
No, the dead assassin in the room. First, I want to address. Nothing specifically, honestly, except that I think we're going to put the Dead Do Not Podcast on a little bit of a hiatus. And I know that our 2 listeners are like, no. I feel sorry for both of you. I apologize. But when we got ready to do our next TV series after Forever Night, I had kind of a little thing I did on Instagram where I went through all the different ones that were a possibility. And then I told about why I had decided not to do all of them. And then we ended up choosing Lexx, which I do not regret because at the time, talking about a silly fantasy sci-fi show that's a dark horror comedy that's mostly sex jokes sounded like a good time. And I've had a great time.
It fit the vibes.
It fit the vibe. I've had a great time. I'm really enjoying it. But now, for some reason that I don't know, it's just weird. I really couldn't put my finger on it.
There must be something in the zeitgeist.
I want to talk about a sci-fi show about a small band of people standing up against impossible odds and defeating evil in the universe. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to switch to talking about Babylon 5. And I'm going to get that all set up, and then I'm going to announce it on the Instagram page. And I'll probably put the first episode in this stream so you can find us. We will get back to Lexx. We are not done with Lexx. But I need to follow my heart to Babylon 5 right now. Because following my heart feels like the thing that I need to do to stay sane. And weirdly, I think it'll take us about 4 years to do all of Babylon 5.
Yeah. 4 years.
Just putting my finger on a number here for some reason. You know exactly what reason I'm talking about. And if it bothers you that I'm political, then you can fuck right off. So anyway, is anybody ready to talk about Lexx for the last time for a little bit?
Season 2, episode... What? 7?
Episode next.
Oh, it's not on your...
I did not
notes.
write it on the top of my notes, and I don't know why.
Slacker.
It is season 2, episode 7, Love Grows. Love Grows. And this was an interesting episode. When we watched this episode, say November 3rd-ish, I enjoyed this episode. When I was reviewing this episode for our discussion today, I had different feelings about this episode because it gets a little rapey in a couple of places.
It really does.
And we will discuss that when we get there because I don't think that they were going for that necessarily. At least I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a bit of commentary because I saw it phrased this way. And I think it's a really good way to think of it is that little boys are taught that when they eventually grow up, that they should strive for power because then they can control people around them. And little girls, when they're young, dream of having power so that they can be safe.
Yeah.
And so this felt a little bit like a commentary about the different way that different genders deal with a power dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And we will unpack that a little bit when we get there. But I was going through my notes and I was having a really hard time not going to a dark place with this. And that is when I realized as myself that Lexx was not something that we could cover right now, because I don't think I could talk about another episode like this and keep it light and fun. And Lexx is supposed to be light and fun. Some of the jokes don't hit the way they did a week ago, 30 years ago, but that's okay. And it's not Lex's fault. And I don't want to beat up on Lexx. And I feel like I'm going to beat up on Lexx. And that's why I want to give it a little bit of a break. And we're going to switch to Babylon 5.
Yeah.
And then we will come back to Lexx when I feel like I'm in a place where we can discuss Lexx and we can have fun with it again. So in this episode, a lot happens.
There's a lot of changes.
A lot happens and nothing happens.
Yeah, there's not really any plot. There's not really any closure to the characters and story that come in to the Lexx at this point.
You know what I realized watching it this time? Where are they going? What are they doing?
They're
It's like-
looking for a home.
They're not even looking for a home anymore. We're just following Stanley's penis across the universe.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
And I think maybe that's why I'm like, what is I mean, Forever Night didn't have a through line plot. Really?
But at least there was something happening each episode.
I mean, they did in that he was trying to become, it was his like striving to become more human, striving to become more moral, striving to.
Through the day-to-day process of being a human in a human society.
Right. And so we had that to pull us through this. At this point, we have dick jokes.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's funny. I like this episode. It's fine. But like, I mean, we could have had like we're traveling to this place. They're just drifting aimlessly in space at this point, honestly.
Okay,
Trying to find
compare
sex.
it to Star Trek, which isn't usually very accurate. In Star Trek, most of the episodes, where they are going doesn't really matter. But they usually start off the episode with like officer's log, captain's log, whatever.
Stardate. Yeah.
Stardate, such and such. We're on the way to answer a request from such and such planet to
Here's the
negotiate,
setup. You
blah, blah,
ready?
blah. And it doesn't matter what the setup is. It just matters that we're moving through space in a direction.
Well, every
and stuff
single
happens.
series had a goal, right? So
Right.
Enterprise, the first one, Star Trek: The Next Generation, not the first, but you know what I'm going with that.
Yeah.
They were exploring.
Right.
They were
and
they were explorers,
And they
So,
were on a lot
okay.
of diplomatic missions and scientific missions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. We get that, right?
Right.
And then Voyager was trying to get home.
Yep.
Because they got flung way out into space. Enterprise was trying to explore the universe because they were the first warp-capable ship. I mean, it was like you figured it anyway.
But on Lexx, just to set up the context of what are we doing right now?
Yeah, what do we? Well, that's what I just want to. Like,
Where are we going?
What are we doing? I mean, because Mantrid is following them and destroying the things that they interact with.
Right.
Which would make more sense if they were interacting with things that felt relevant. But they are somewhere in space that is so remote. These people don't know what the Lexx is. And the people on the Lexx don't know what these planets are. Like, they had no knowledge of that TV planet that had been completely destroyed.
Right.
None. And then they knew about the Celes pleasure transport. So that is somewhere in the vicinity of these planets
Right.
that they had no idea.
Are they spiraling randomly through the known universe?
Right, and then we had Potato Ho, which they didn't even know exist. And Potato Ho didn't know anybody else existed.
Right.
And then in this one, we meet a group of people that are disposing of goods, or they're disposing of waste
Yeah.
hazardous waste for who? For who? For who? For what? They're like, oh, we're going to talk to the transport authority. And he's like, oh, you mean the client? What transport authority? Is it a specific
The transport
planet?
authority of what organization? What coalition of planets? What galactic
Where were you taking this?
society?
They're like, oh,
are
you're
we
going through the
talking
forbidden
about?
area of space. What forbidden areas? Anyway, clearly, I need more backstory, maybe, from Lexx that I'm not getting. And maybe
This one was particularly light on context.
Yeah. I feel like the Stellite's pleasure transport. Okay. We don't know who those people are the judge for. We don't know what, except for the resistance, but like, okay, so the Austral be heretics, but didn't they all die? Like maybe they got better. I don't, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we're flying through space. And 790 is alone on the bridge, and he's spouting poetry, which is that if there's something we do consistently, it's give 790 an opportunity to open the episode with a with a limerick, a composed
Verbal
poem
diarrhea about Zev.
about Zev. I dream about your fragrance and the splendor of your caress, but most of all, I dream about my life under your dress. So when will we get naked and ride on the rocket of love?
So the voice of 790 is Jeffrey Hirschfield.
Yeah.
And he's one of the creators of the show.
Yeah.
Also the voice of 790. I wonder if these were Jeffrey's poems.
When will I taste your sweet plum pie, my red-haired pumpy dove? I don't know. I like to think they just sat him in a room and he just recited poetry, and then they've been using clips of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was just that one night where he just went wild.
He's like, what if 790, no, guys, got it. What if 790 just said poems like fucking all the time? And they were like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. And he's like, all night by the Zev Zev. All night by the Zev I lay. So then an image appears on the view screen. He must call these up.
Right, he must be scanning.
Yeah. That must be what they have him do, because otherwise he's with Zev. So
Right, this is his shift of being on the bridge.
Maybe what they do is they just put him on there and then he scans for nearby planets, and then when he finds one, they go there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a sleazy video. It's a porn. It's a porn.
Yeah.
And it's 3 girls walking around and there's like a topless guy. And they're like, oh, there's a handyman. He's come to fix our stuff on the planet Orgasmos. Really burying the lead. And they're like, are you ready to work? He's ready. Are you sure he's up to it? Oh, he's up. All right. Then come on, girls. Let's open his toolbox. It's the worst. It's like, what are the ones where like the joke of the woman gets like tries to fix her own dishwasher and gets stuck in the dishwasher? Oh no. Our machinery is top of the line. It needs constant maintenance, attention to detail, specialized parts. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it and do it and do it. And 790's watching and he's like, oh, this is going to be good.
And this wakes up Stanley.
Yeah. Maybe he wakes up Stanley.
I could see 790 deliberately waking up Stanley just to egg him on.
Just to fuck with him. Yeah. Because then we pan out to space. And this is a video and someone is watching it. And it's this really greasy, nasty looking dude who's chewing on not a toothpick. It just looks like a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And he's in the cockpit of this spaceship called the Stripper. Okay. We're really just continuing the theme.
Oh, yeah.
And then the screen goes blank because somebody's taken the tape out. And it's this older lady. And she's like, tell me, Rexel, because the guy watching the tape is Rexel. Tell me, Rexel, are all men pigs? And he just goes, oink. And that's the whole theme of the episode. If you wanted to know what the thrust of this episode was, the question, are all men pigs? With the answer, oink, pretty much sums it up. In fact, we repeat that line of dialogue later. Because she's like, might I remind you that you're on duty and your stupid little porn films are an unauthorized
Misuse
use
of company property.
of communications equipment. Try studying the standard operating charter sometime. And then we cut back to Stan walking onto the bridge of the Lexx. And Stan's like, so, old buddy, old pal 790, who always has my best interests in mind. Did you see anything there on the screen there? And 790 goes, not a thing, Captain. He's such a douchebag. So should we refer to 790 as he or she, since we found some behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but like
Yeah, the
additional content, and we found out 790's backstory as a barmaid?
so the brain that went into 790 was a woman's brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 790 has a male voice. I don't know. We're just going to continue to refer to 790 as we have been continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then Stanley walks away as 790 continues to like chuckle under his breath. 790 doesn't have a lot to do this episode except be malevolent.
Right.
And talk to Kai later. That's about it. We go back to the stripper and Lorca is like Lorca's the older lady and she's looking at this monitor and she's like, Captain Jebed. Jebed? I don't know. It's the captain. And he goes, something bothering you, Lorca? And she's like, yeah, only the fact that the monitor indicates that we're illegally crossing the boundary into restricted space.
It's a shortcut.
And he's like, yeah, they're paying us to do it really quickly. And so we're going to do it really quickly. What the fuck is the problem? And she's like, we are towing this is great. This is our info dump. Are you ready for it? We are towing category 13 biohazard material, Captain. Transport rule number 5 provides strict penalties for those who transport category 13 outside of approved corridors, which means that there are approved trade routes through this area of space.
Right.
Which
And
implies some sort of
there's an organization large enough to enforce adherence to those trade routes.
Yeah, which implies some sort of central authority that both produces and then disposes of
Category
the types
13.
of material that can turn you from a man into a woman just by landing on your skin.
It happened to the frogs, Rachel.
And I really hate to harp on this, but didn't everybody die? Didn't everybody die?
Everybody in the League of 20,000 Planets. But there are more than 20,000 planets in the galaxy.
Do you know what the fastest fucking workaround for this would have been?
What's that?
Make it in the dark universe.
When I first watched this, I thought it was. I thought they defeated his shadow and then they escaped, or I guess in the first season, they escaped to the dark universe. And I thought they stayed in the dark universe the whole time.
We were in the dark universe for like an episode and a half. We haven't even mentioned the existence of the dark universe. Except at the very beginning when they were in it and they had to come back to get the larva of the shadow, his divine shadow,
and then they
take
never
it to
went
Mantrid.
back.
And then they were like, peace out, motherfucker. And we haven't talked about it ever since. And all of this confusion and the Lexx not knowing about these people.
The only thing that wouldn't
knowing.
have worked in the dark universe is Stanley's trial.
Yeah. So we just move that further up or later.
Yeah.
Anyway, or you give us a way to travel back and forth, but you have to come back to the light universe for certain resources. Like maybe the Lexx can't eat anything in the dark universe because it's not compatible. It's different, whatever. So come back to the light universe to eat, go back to the dark universe to hide. They don't think they have anything to hide from. So they would, I'm done. I just had to voice that. Now I've moved on.
When they remake Lexx.
In the reboot, this will make more sense. I get that there's 20,000 planets. The possibility of a single individual human knowing all of the information about all 20,000 planets is unrealistic. However, we have an entire character who knows exactly what the episode needs him to know every single episode.
Okay, well, my claim is all 20,000 planets were depopulated. But outside of the range of influence of his Shadow's empire, there are other human societies. And the Lexx has traveled beyond the boundaries of
Gone beyond the rim.
beyond the sphere of influence of his Shadow's empire
Yeah.
and the League of 20,000 Planets. And so these societies on the fringe of his Shadow's empire were tangentially aware, some of them, of his Shadow's empire, but were not subject to its influence.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where they're weaving in and out of now.
It would make sense as to why they didn't know what the Lexx was.
Yeah.
But sometimes people do, but it's usually like the Loveliner knew what it was,
Right.
but the hospital ship didn't. And the Cele's pleasure transport didn't, and the entire Australby heretic group didn't know what the Lexx was.
Right.
Which makes no sense. So we're going to like, you know when you're skipping a stone and it hits on something and then it whoosh off?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Because
Great.
that is a rabbit hole of impossible depth. So anyway, they're heading into a restricted space carrying biohazard material, category 13 material. And so Lorca's like, I'm going to report you to the transit authority. And Jabed goes, oh, you mean the client? So
oh, Captain, my captain.
So the captain, the client is the transport authority, and that's why it doesn't matter where they drive. And
But then we find out there's a reason there are restricted spaces.
Correct, which the transport authority should have known.
The captain should have known.
No, we're going to get to my favorite part here in just a minute, so pause that. Put a pin in that.
The captain should have known.
Yeah. Because we get a view of what this ship looks like. And so the outside looks like a pickup truck, basically, with a naked woman painted on the side because, hey, let's just carry that theme all the way through. And then, like, 45 minutes of the episode is just panning along the cable to get to the cargo container that's all the way at the back. And this is not a rigid cable. This is not an Event Horizon situation.
This is a tension cable.
This is literally a hauling cable that is like a mile long.
Because the contaminated material is so hazardous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go off.
Continue.
Right? Yeah. What are we going to do with this? Are they going to incinerate it? Because there's like a painting on the cargo container. There's like a skull with green stuff shooting out of it, and there's like a crack in the skull.
Yeah. So, in my mind, the most efficient place to dispose of stuff like this is drop it into a star.
Yeah, just shoot it into the sun.
And it would probably be a little more expensive in fuel cost in the short term to like shift the velocity correctly to get it to just drop straight into a star. But it'd be a lot faster.
Yes.
It'd be more fuel efficient overall than like traveling to a different solar system to dispose of this material.
Right. Are you dumping it on a waste planet or something? Because that's...
Right? Are you throwing it into a nebula or something? What's going on? Where is this going? Or is this just going outside of the regions of space that are monitored and enforced by the transit authority?
Yeah, maybe it's like the town near where we live, where Alcoa had one of the largest aluminum plants, and they used to take the toxic waste that came off of the aluminum production and spray it on the streets in the black quarter of town to keep the dust down on the gravel roads.
Yeah. Maybe it's something like that.
That happened. That was a thing. And honestly, I was thinking someday it might actually be interesting to have a podcast about our shitty little town, because our shitty little town is, let me tell you,
Pretty shitty.
extra shitty. So then this is the one sexual interaction that I actually don't mind in this entire episode. And it's when Stanley walks into Zev's bedchamber and he's like, okay, what's it going to take? Because she's sitting there filing her nails with a piece of bone, by the way.
Badass.
It's probably from the guy that she knocked, the guy that tried to rape her. Just, I'm going to use your bones to make my bread. So he's like, what's it going to take to get you into bed? State your terms. I'll do anything. You just let me know. We'll make this happen. And Zev's like, oh, Stan, that's so forthright of you.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't been trying to get her in bed this entire time. But he has been trying to seduce her.
Right.
He has been emotionally bidding her for bed.
He has been propositioning her.
Yeah.
But also respecting her no.
Yeah. I mean, he keeps shooting his shot, which is a little tiresome. But every time she says no, he's like, okay.
Right. But to be fair.
I love that that's the bar.
To be fair, they are the only sexually compatible entities on this ship together.
I mean, look at
for weeks, months at a time.
Look at what all of Stanley's sexual interactions have been. Transactional.
Right.
Every
this is
time,
the only thing he knows.
Every time he talks about sex, it's transactional. I went to the Sally's Pleasure Transport. I traded some shit. I got laid. He goes to the Love Liner. I will not blow you up if you give me what I want.
Right.
Which is why later in the episode, when he does have a woman who's like, I'm ready, let's go. He doesn't do it because it's not the type of goods he wants to buy. It's not
not the types of goods he was expecting to buy.
Right.
Because by the end of their conversation, he really did want what she was offering.
Right. Well, yes. So for Stanley, this is just business.
Right.
I have needs.
This is how this operates.
You have needs. Yeah. We can make our needs happen together, and then the needs go away. This is perfect. This makes a lot of sense. And from Zev's point of view, it's, no, I want to have an emotional connection with you, and I don't. And so I can't. And also, I'm willing to fuck other dudes. But
exactly.
In lieu of an emotional connection, I will take physical attraction.
Right.
And for Stanley, there is neither. So Stanley and Zev, Stan is neither emotionally what she's looking for or physically what she's looking for. So she'll take one or the other, and he's got neither.
Right.
And so she's just not in, which is what she said, because he goes, look, I'm jumping out of my skin. I'll do whatever it takes. You just tell me. And she goes, oh, I am too. I am also literally about to fucking explode. I am so horny. You better believe it. But no. And he goes, look.
But I have standards.
He goes, look, pretend I'm Kai, okay? I don't care. And she's like, she looks like she considers it for a minute, like, could I put him in a beehive? Could I make this work? Turn the lights down real low. He's like, I don't care, Zev. We've been out here forever and I need this. And she goes, oh, I know. And I could, if I could, I would. But one look at you and I can't.
Oof.
And Stanley even goes, look, we don't even have to touch, okay? Except when we do have to touch. Like, we don't have to make this like a thing. We don't have to kiss. We don't have to.
Right.
Foreplay out the window. I'm good to go. Okay. I've been hard since Tuesday. Can we please just make this happen? And Zev is like, look, I'm sorry, Stanley, but I'm also suffering. Life is unfair. And Stanley's like, okay, fucking fine. So he leaves and he goes back to the bridge and he sends out a message. He's like, ladies of the universe, I am Stan, your man, Tweedle. I am a superior example of the male human species. The guy who knows how to provide, shall we say. He does like a tongue thing. The ultimate in sexual ecstasy. And my headcanon for Stanley is that he is hung like a horse and excellent in bed.
Well, of course he is.
He honestly just needs somebody to be with him once.
He's got a prime product. He just can't sell it. He's bad at marketing.
Literally, if Zev even gave him a chance once, this whole thing would be over because she'd be like, cool, I got it. I don't need anyone else ever again.
Right.
Like, he is so...
Right. With the irony that this show operates on.
Yes.
That's the situation.
That's what needs to happen when he finally gets laid.
Yeah.
Which, technically speaking, he gets laid in this episode.
He and Zev have intercourse.
Yes. Correct. He says, anyway, that he's the ultimate in sexual ecstasy, which I personally believe is probably true. And then 790 goes, you mean simpering idiocy? Thank you, 790. That's really just the aside was necessary.
And we were missing something from this conversation.
Right. He goes, ladies, because he completely ignores 790, because who the fuck cares? 790 just always has something to say. So he's that friend that you just never listen to.
Before we go any farther about Stanley's transmission, it seems like we're generally depending on 790 to facilitate transmissions.
Yeah, he's probably not transmitting it. Because he doesn't say, Lexx, send this out. He just starts talking. Yeah. Correct. That's why 790's like, because he's just talking to the room. Ladies, the word is love, and I am the word. Whisper it soft, shout it strong, but Stanley's all night long. Stanley, yes. So Zev is like, okay. So she walks into the cryo chamber and opens Kai's cryopod, and he leans out like, did somebody die though?
Oh, wait, are you waking me up before the emergency? Sorry.
Well, there does not seem to be enough screaming. Wake me up in an hour. 5 more minutes. And Zev just walks up and goes, I want to do it. And he goes, do what? She goes, I want to do it with you. And he goes, I think you mean sex? And she's like, yeah, the sex. Let's make with the sex right now. And he's like, yeah, that has not worked in 2,000 years. I don't have a heartbeat. I don't even have blood. I don't have carbon. I don't have protein. I got nothing. I am made of...
You know the stuff that comes out? Yeah, that's mostly protein.
Yeah, and I ain't got none of that shit.
I have no protein in my body.
And Zev goes, well, my sexual organ has never functioned. And I think we both have a lot of catching up to do. And he goes, okay, Zev, you are clearly desirable. I love how he tells her no, because he's like, were I a man with a dick, I'd be all over that shit. However, no matter how desirable and beautiful you may be, sex is just an intellectual concept to me. Like, there's no emotional connection with that. I can't. The plumbing is not hooked up, okay? Right. Somebody disconnected that a long time ago, and it's not. We've lost the connection. There's no permit.
In my head, it's more of an existential thing where, because of his experience and I guess as his identification as being dead.
Yeah.
The dead do not procreate.
Yeah.
The dead do not fornicate. It's not something that's accessible to him experientially. So he just can't get his head like into that mode. And
yeah, that's what he means. It's just an intellectual concept.
Right. That's what I get from it. It's just an intellectual concept. Like, the plumbing may work. Like, what do they do?
Okay, compose yourself.
Okay.
No.
There is a country on this planet.
Okay.
Where their military has this thing that they do. If a wife of a man who's like out on active duty.
Yeah.
If he dies in battle, like in action, if he's killed in action, she can request sperm.
Okay.
And the way that they...
You almost made it.
The way that they do this is they have basically like a taser dildo and they stick it up the dead man's butt.
Yeah, for
And
prostate stimulation.
you get some stuff out.
That's a
And
what you're saying is
what I'm saying is an
okay.
intact
Yeah.
dead body.
Okay.
You can shoop, zzz,
2 words. 2 words. Taser dildo.
You like that?
Listen, that sounds sad. I'm not laughing at I would just like to try to have a baby with my husband, even though he's no longer here. That's not what's funny. Taser dildo. You got me. And then thinking probably 790 could rig that up if you could convince him to do it.
Right. So if Kai was like willing, they could make something work.
Yes. Plus, penetration is not the only form of intimacy.
Exactly.
So it's not like we need his. She even says that. She's like, there's other stuff we can do.
Yeah, that came up in Lisa Frankenstein also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
maybe
was
that's
like,
what I'm thinking about.
he was like, oh, yeah, like, feel my crotch. And she's like, oh, well, that's
okay.
not the only option.
Yeah.
There's
other
lots of
stuff we can
other
do.
things to do.
Correct.
Which they did a few nights before, where he held the vibrator for her.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Right.
they could do something. The dead do not manually stimulate.
The dead do
I don't
not
know.
caress. I don't know. The point here is this is Kai
The
very...
dead do not heavy pet.
The dead do not foreplay. Okay. This is Kai very gently telling Zev that we're not going to be together physically. Like, I appreciate what you're going for. Thank you. But no. Because she goes, I don't care if you're dead. And then she tries to kiss him. Because she's like, I need you now. And so she tries to kiss him. And he doesn't react at all. And so she steps back and she's like, I can't do this alone. It takes 2 to tango, Kai. And he goes, yeah, well, I can't do it at all. Like, I cannot participate in this. Please stop pushing me. And she stepped back and is really upset. She tells him she hates him. She's like, I hate you. And Kai just stands there like, I mean, you knew that going into this.
Right.
It's not like I pretended to be alive. And then bait and switch, I'm actually dead. No, you knew he was dead this whole time and you were still like, I think I can make this work.
Right. He has not been leading her on.
No. And for a while, she was trying to bring him back to life. But of course, like with all the other plot, that has just sort of, maybe Mantrid ate it. Maybe Mantrid eats the plot. Maybe that's the...
he eats the plot holes.
Yeah, that's what's really happening.
Or he eats the plot and leaves plot holes behind.
And then we go back up to the bridge because Stanley is standing there with 790. Which, why does he not just punt 790 at all times? Like, why leave him there to heckle you? Well, because he performs a vital function.
Right, of knowledge retrieval.
Right, because Lexx forgot stuff. So Stanley is just like, respond, please, somebody. I'm sure you've had far worse than me. You're probably not hot yourself. That's
big incel energy.
Come on, Stanley. No.
You're not like that deep down.
No. That was a moment of weakness. I forgive you. Don't do it again. So he goes, Lexx, keep listening for any incoming signals. I want to hear anything, and I mean anything that may sound intelligent. And 790 goes, so you can try to learn what intelligence is?
790 just doesn't hold him back.
I know. Well, and then Stanley doesn't even act like which is probably fine because the robot head's probably sitting there and someone's shouting the lines from off screen. So he just doesn't act like he's saying anything. Goes, understand, Lexx? And Lexx goes, yes, I do, Stan. And then Stanley falls asleep standing up in the pilot's chair.
Because he's so exhausted sexually.
Yeah. And now we get back to, the best captain in the universe. Jabed, because Lorca is like, oh my God, something has shown up on my thingy. My beep boop is beep booping.
We got an alert, Captain.
And Rexel, meanwhile, has put his tape back on, and Jabed and Rexel are watching it together. And they're like, oh no, the last of the men is dead. What are we to do? We must have more men, lots of men, hot, hard men all the time. So Lexx picks up that signal and shows it to Stanley.
790 picks up that signal.
And shows it to Stanley. And Lexx goes, I have encountered an intelligent signal, Stan. Because Stanley's asleep and won't wake up. And this is when we get the scene from the porn video where they're like, emergency, this is a distress call from the planet Orgasmos. And Stanley's like, oh my God, that sounds like a planet I could really get behind, in front of, all around. We need men to serve our lust. Here are the coordinates. The labial sector, quadrant oral, parallel 69.69, plunge 90 degrees deep. Okay, this implies that all of these things
Are valid navigational terms?
yes, and that 69 exists in whatever universe this is. I mean, I'm sure 69 exists as both a thing that people do,
But 69 only works
with
with
the numerals.
Arabic numerals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Thank you for that. Because you need the
Yeah.
specific shape of the numbers.
For that to make sense. Yeah.
Anyway, so, I mean, we find Earth eventually, don't we? Is that a spoiler? I don't know. I think we do. So there's the possibility that this was picked up. Maybe this is where all of our radio signals have traveled for time.
That's where it's all been going this whole time.
And that's why it all seems strangely familiar, like they're picking up our culture. And then the picture is interrupted by static and disappears. And Stanley's like, Lexx, chase that signal as fast as you can, faster than you think you can. And 790 goes, joy can be found in the littlest things. Thanks, 790. Honestly, I want us to do more with 790. I'm not going to lie. Like, I like 790. I like 790's asides. But I'm ready for 790 to be more than just the appliance that either insults Stanley, threatens to kill Stanley, or operates all machinery as if it knows everything about all machinery.
Right.
So we cut back to the stripper, and Jabed and Rexel are finishing up the porn video. And Lorca's like, do the words pathetic, disgusting male lowlives have any resonance with you? Do these people travel together often? Is this a crew?
It feels like this crew was like forcibly assembled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Lorca's beep boop is still beep booping. So she's like, I think there's a magnetic disturbance, possibly an ion field. Somebody looked that up for the Potato
They
Hoe
teched
episode.
the tech.
Somebody looked that up for the Potato Hoe episode, and they were like, we could probably use that again. That's the thing. The thing that exists. And Jabed's like, is there a visual? And Lorca goes, nah, I can't see it. And he goes, no visual, no issue. Because that's how space works. Did you know that everything
Big
in space
theory.
is visible? Including all forms of energy?
It depends on what's doing the visioning.
Anyway, they decide to just ignore it. They're like, meh, whatever.
Right. This captain obviously doesn't care.
Right, because they run into it and they get stopped. And Lorca goes, there's your visual. But the problem, of course, is that the trailer following them is on a soft cord. So as soon as they stop, the momentum continues to pull the trailer forward. And they're like, oh no.
Momentum
what
is
can
conserved.
we do? And so all they really had to do at this point was like go slightly to the side because it's going to continue traveling in the direction that it was
and
traveling.
then it's just going to yank you.
Yeah, but at least it's not going to bang into you.
It's not going to bang into you. Yeah.
Whatever. They run at, instead of doing any of that, they just punch through the ion field. And then the trailer gets caught and they end up, technical term, crunching.
Yeah.
And then stuff comes in through the vents. That was the stuff comes in through the vent and like glittery pink stuff lands on their skin. I'm sure that's going to be fine. So they wake up and they're like,
I'm so ready.
what is this shit? Just
What is this shit?
thank you.
You're welcome.
That's exactly
Practicing my monster voice.
That's exactly how Zev sounds after they make her into a man. And so she has the modulated down voice.
I was waiting for the Lexx to get gender swapped.
It does.
It does?
Yeah. Remember, it asks Kai if it's beautiful.
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, yeah.
I was waiting for an external shot of something
and the two big eyeballs are now
perceivable
boobs.
as genitalia on the Lexx.
The two big
to
eyeballs
show that it was gender swapped. Okay.
That implies that the Lexx is male, I guess, because it got turned into a woman.
Yeah. Or maybe it just got turned into a vain male that wants to know it's beautiful.
Could be.
Male and wanting to be recognized as attractive are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. I don't know. These people are dumb. I think that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah.
Because Rexel and Jabet are like, could this possibly be leak cargo? And he's like, no, if it was leak cargo, we'd be dead already. And they're like, okay, so obviously it's... What the fuck else could it be? Rocket fuel.
Coolant.
Whatever. He's like, maybe we are dead. Okay.
It's not rocket science.
It's... You just fly a rocket ship. It's not rocket science. And then an alarm starts playing. And you're like, what the hell is that? And Rexel goes, I don't know, but it looks like a really big bug is coming straight for us, which means they don't know what the Lexx is.
Right.
Which means we've once again encountered a civilization.
We've veered across the perimeter of his shadow's empire's sphere of influence.
Maybe they just don't watch the news. Maybe they're just immune to propaganda.
They could just be uninformed citizens.
Oh, what would that be like? And then Zev walks onto the bridge, because we cut back to the bridge, and stands pacing back and forth quite happily, because as far as he's concerned, he's on the way to the planet Orgasmos. And so she goes, hey, what's up with you? Remember, she just had her encounter with Kai where he was like, sorry, but we're never going to have sex. And she screamed, I hate you at him and ran away. And so she comes up here to talk to Stan. And Stan goes, you know, Zev, some guys like fleshy women. And other guys like them small and thin for that wraparound effect. See, the smart shopper should look for what is most satisfying each day. That's what makes me think Stanley only thinks of sex in terms of transaction.
Yeah.
Because he refers to himself as a shopper.
Right.
And Zev goes, I think you've finally lost your mind. And we cut back to the outside of Lexx, and Lexx is heading towards the stripper, and the stripper looks like itty bitty, and Lexx is very big. And Jabed's like, veer left. Take evasive action.
But the Lexx just...
Yeah, Lexx just goes and eats them.
Pac-Man's up that ship and cargo.
And Stanley's like, what was that, Lexx? And Lexx goes, oh, I adjusted my course slightly to consume a snack. And Stanley goes, oh, okay. No further questions, Your Honor. No further questions. What happened to justice? Remember how important justice was last episode? Kai is awake right now. The Lexx just ate a ship full of unarmed non-combatants that did not deserve to die.
Right. That's a very valid point. The Lexx should be aware of what it's eating.
I think it just eats whatever. But that implies that the Lexx eats ships. Like, if they come across anything smaller than the Lexx, there is a likelihood that it will eat it without considering what it might be.
Yeah. Especially if the ship was non-operational.
Yeah.
Like if it was all powered down.
Oh, that could be why, because there was no active signals or... Yeah. I don't know. It's just... Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And then we cut to the stripper, because now it's in Lex's stomach. And they all jump out of the ship, because what the fuck just happened? Imagine you don't know what you don't know what the Lexx is, and you're flying a spaceship, you crashed, and then a giant bug ate you in space. And they're like, yeah, get out of the fucking ships. They get out of the ship and jump over onto the meat wall. Because God knows we haven't had enough weird, meaty Lexx interior rooms in a really long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And then we cut back to Stanley because the Lexx is acting erratically. And he's like, Lexx, how we doing? And the Lexx goes, the snack was not very tasty. And poor Lexx, Stanley is so dismissive. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever the fuck ever, Lexx. I don't care that your snack wasn't tasty.
Come on, Lexx. I have needs.
Where's my nookie? What happened to the planet Orgasmos? So Zev is like, wait, what planet? And he goes, the one I found. I'm going there, and I'm going to have an extremely good time, and we can find a necrophilia planet to drop you off on. That's a
fair.
a low blow, though. A little low. And Zev's like, I'll drop you on the fucking floor. And then she puts 790 down. So actually 790 is the one who gets dropped on the floor. And then Lexx is like, Stanley, weirdest thing. The signal stopped. It was around here. I ate something and now it's stopped. These things are not connected. It's perfectly fine.
No relation
And
whatsoever.
Stanley's like, okay. Can you relocate it though? Orgasmos, this is Stanley Tweedle. I'm a functioning man. Come in. So Zev storms off. And then we cut back to the crew of the stripper. And they're like,
just trying to survive.
What the fuck is happening? As their ship sinks into the bog of eternal digestion, I guess. And then like a pink cloud of gas swarms up and they're like, yeah, that's probably just more rocket fuel. That's fine.
Totally normal.
So they start climbing the meat wall. And Rexel's like, are we inside like a bug thing? Yes, and we're about to cut our way out of its stomach with our itty bitty little knives.
Good thing they have knives.
Good thing they have knives, because otherwise, how do they get out of this room?
Just wait for the right sphincter to open.
Yeah, that would send them out into space, which, I mean, honestly, they'd
Not
probably
necessarily.
be fine.
It might be an internal sphincter.
Okay, but then they'd be moving further down the digestive tract. And then we'd be back to the part where Malcolm McDowell was like, I defy thee. And he traveled through the intestine of the divine shadow, the Giga Shadow. Lorca's like, congratulations, you succeeded in getting us killed, which honestly, it's not his fault that the Lexx ate them. It is his fault that they crashed.
Yeah.
But Rexel's not paying attention because he goes into a spasm. He's like, blah, blah, blah. You know, they used to film it really slow and then speed it up and it's just them wiggling around. That's exactly what happens. And then it passes and they're all like, yeah, that's also probably fine. It's never happened before, but like, it's cool. It's fine. It's probably the rocket fuel. So they climb the stomach wall and then we cut to Zev on her bed wearing a towel, looking thoughtful. And she picks up a mirror and she looks at herself in the face and she's like, am I going to do this? Yeah, I'm going to fucking do this. Because the next thing that she does is go find Stanley.
Right.
And so Lexx is actually gurgling at this point. And Stanley's like, what is that noise, Lexx? And he goes, I feel an upset in my digestive system. And Stanley's like, I don't fucking care. Fine. This is such a long scene. Stanley looking for the planet.
Right.
The
And I think
people
it's just
escaping
drawn
the ship.
out to allow time, realistically, for the people to escape the digestive tract.
Yeah. Must be some mad stomach upset, though, because they're literally using the knife to climb the wall. They're stabbing Lexx in the stomach. And they manage to jump through the hole. They cut a hole in this flimsy looking whatever orifice, sphincter, body part, just as the Lexx spews, vomits the trailer out into space. Stop that. Stop. And Stanley watches it fly out on the view screen and he's like, what are you doing now? And Lexx is like, I'm getting rid of toxins that were irritating my digestive system. Stanley.
I'm repairing myself, Stanley.
Yeah, okay, that's really nice. But find me the women, Lex. Find me the women. Orgasmos, orgasmos, orgasmos is what he says. Meanwhile,
I wonder if Lexx could make an appropriate orifice.
could he grow one? Like a glory hole for Stanley? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking about? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, everything's fleshy. So honestly,
A fleshlight.
there's probably an option. He just hasn't thought about it hard enough yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the,
The right consistency.
maybe he needs more. Like he needs it to be attached to a woman.
Oh. Okay.
Like he needs the whole package.
Maybe.
Because clearly there is a element of attraction in it for Stanley, because when he is offered sex by Lorca, he's like, hard pass.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. He could have had, if it was just about sticking his dick in something, that would have been fine. And he even did that on the love liner. When the lady came in, he was like, actually, not you. I would like somebody prettier. Like a woman just showed up who was like, yes, anything you want, we will do it. And he was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do it with you.
I want to keep my options open.
Yeah. So there's obviously an element of like attraction involved in this. So I mean, honestly, he'd probably be fine with the shower head. That feels like it's probably the correct. If he could just, it gets longer every time we see it. If we wait long enough, it will be long enough for him to use as a flashlight. So anyway, I think there's more to it. But Zev walks back onto the bridge and she's like, Stanley. And Stan's like, what? She goes, I'm ready. What? 790's like, Zev, what are you saying? And she goes, 790 off. And 790,
which is a thing, apparently.
790's like, ah! Don't do it. And Zev goes, look, I can't hold out any longer. Take me before I change my mind. That's real flattering. But Stanley's like, don't toy with me, Zev. I can't take it. And she goes, can you take this? And she grabs his hand and sticks it on her breast, and it goes, ear, like a squeaky toy.
That's the cluster lizard.
That's the cluster lizard, exactly. There's an air pocket in there for cluster lizard reasons. And he's like, yeah, okay. We're going to rock the heavens. You won't regret this. Don't make it weird, Stanley. Just do it, okay? We don't need to rock anything. Although, canonically, I'm sure heavens will be rocked. And Zev goes, I already do regret this. Now shut up and kiss me. And they are finally getting ready to have sex.
Cutscene 2, them writhing on the floor.
Which is what she trips him and then falls on top of him. And they're in the most uncomfortable room to do this. She has a whole fuck bed. Why don't they go to the fuck bed? And he's like, nah, right here, right now on the corrugated
flooring. She could have called him to her room.
Yeah. And then they look up and all three people from the stripper are staring at them because they've made their way into a corridor and up to the bridge, because there's only 2 rooms in the whole ship. And if they don't end up in Zev's bedroom or the meat room,
there's only 2 rooms at a time.
You're right.
Because other rooms
Like
appear as
cube.
necessary.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, great. Yeah, you saw 2 people getting ready to have sex. Yes, let's make a joke about that, because that's what this episode's about. Because they're watching and smiling. And Rexel goes, ma'am, any chance of me getting some of that? And
Dude, what the fuck?
Captain Jabed elbows him in the chest and then is like, yeah, actually. Oh, can we hit that?
What he said.
And then we cut to Lorca in the shower. I mean, they're all covered in digestive juices, so.
Right. It's completely reasonable they want to get cleaned up.
And she is watching the shower gland swing back and forth in front of her very suspiciously. Like, what is that? Agreed. What is that? I don't know. Would we decide it was a salivary gland?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Stanley walks in and he's like, Stanley walks in. I say that nonchalantly, but it implies that Stanley has been standing there watching her in this towel this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
He's there to show her how the shower works, but also Zev could have showed her how the shower works. It's whatever. So he goes, the shower works pretty good. You just give the ball a squeeze.
Of course.
And he points at it. That thing squirts on you.
They are as uncomfortable. Stanley is as uncomfortable with the operation of the Lexx as anybody else is.
I mean, it works like any male anatomy, honestly. You just rub the balls a little bit and then the long thing will squirt on you too. It's just water instead of something else. And Lorca's like, thank you. Yes, I'm familiar with the operation of the long thing and the ball. And Stanley goes, so you guys were on your ship. Did you know if you happen to pick up a signal from the planet called Orgasmos? And Lorca's like, Orgasmos? Is it really called that? He's like, yeah, no, I'm really sure.
And Stanley's the only one who hasn't realized
that it's a porn movie.
Yeah.
And Lorca's like, no, I'm sorry. We did not receive one for the planet Orgasmos. Yeah. And Stanley goes, okay, well, just get yourself cleaned up. And she's like, you can stay. I'm comfortable with my body. And Stanley's like, yeah, sure. And he leaves. And then everyone later is in the kitchen. Meat room. I don't know how you want to describe this. And
alternative meat room.
Zev is feeding everybody.
Reverse digestion room.
Does the Lexx recycle their waste back into food?
Probably.
Is it a circular system?
Yeah.
So then yes, it is the reverse eating room. So Zev is playing hostess and she's feeding everybody blue shit on the plastic face masks from the divine predecessors.
They're just recycling.
I know. They're like, please ignore the fact that the bowls look like faces. Once they contained many, many gelatinous brains, they all exploded. Don't worry, we ran these through the dishwasher. It's fine. But then we get a really loaded conversation where Zev is standing there looking at Jabed. Now, Jabed is not, I know he's not really Jabed, but Jabed sounds way better. So I know he's not that unattractive. Like he's okay. I get it. Rexel looks like you could probably wring out his hair and fry chicken. He is the most disgusting character I have ever seen. He hasn't washed. He got dumped in all those digestive juices and it improved the situation. And he somehow never lost his stupid little toothpick through this whole thing.
It has sentimental value.
Does it? It came from his first porn movie? I don't know. Whatever. So there's a very loaded conversation that's happening here because Zev goes, your ordeal must have left you gentlemen very hungry.
Oh, yeah. She's very seductively feeding them.
Yeah. And Rexel's like, starved.
Eating it up.
Ravenous. And Rexel goes, delightful. Are you having any, ma'am? And she goes, oh, not quite yet. Once I start, I can't stop. And she smiles and Jabed licks his fingers. And Stanley's like, don't I get any blue stuff? And Zev just goes, serve yourself, Stan. It's our guests who require hospitality. So Stan's like mutters to himself and goes over and gets some food. And Lorca arrives clean and redressed. And she's like, so we lost our ship. We lost our cargo. We almost lost our lives. And all because our captain can't play by the rules. And that's why we're here. And Jabed gives 0 fucks because he's like, yeah, well, I don't like rules, but I like
he doesn't give any fucks because he's looking forward to the fucks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's lost in the sauce right now. Everything else doesn't matter. He lost his ship. He lost his cargo. He's failed in his mission. But
it may all be worth it in the end.
There's a really hot chick right there. And he's got a good 10, 15 minutes of enjoyment he can have there. So clearly nothing else matters. It's fine. And Kai is in the meat room, looming because he got woken up. So, I mean, why not stretch his legs while he's here?
Yeah.
And
just
he goes,
keep an eye on things.
He goes, what was your cargo? And Lorca goes, the worst kind, probably experimental drugs gone wrong. And Kai's like, oh, okay, cool. What drugs? She goes, I don't know. Category 13. Ugh, obviously. And Stan goes, well, the Lexx can digest just about anything because they're like, I really hope it didn't hurt your vessel to eat experimental drugs. And Stanley's like, nah, it's fine. He's really eaten. One time we landed on this planet with these weird worms that took over your brain and it ate for like 4 hours and it's still fine. So it's perfectly fine. And then he looks over at the men and he's like, aren't you going to eat? No, actually, Then they all look over at Kai and they're like, well, aren't you going to eat anything? Like,
The dead do not eat.
and he just goes, no. And then he leaves. And they look after him and Stan goes, oh no, the dead don't eat. He doesn't explain it. He's just like, that's fine. He's dead. So how did you guys miss the signal? You know, the distress signal from the planet Orgasmos. And this is when he's finally told that it was
Yes.
not a distress signal. And he's like, oh my God, what? Oh, wait a minute. Porn exists? Because maybe we could combo the fleshlight
Right.
and the porn and we could make that work.
Yeah.
Like Stanley wouldn't know what, like he wouldn't know an erotic video when he saw one. Right?
Right?
But-
He should be he should have already seen this movie before.
It would feel in keeping with his character unless in the civilization of the divine shadow there is no such thing as erotic videos.
That's possible. I guess if flesh was as readily available as it seems as a resource to be consumed,
Yeah.
there may have been sex bots.
Well,
Like-
there was sex slaves, love slaves.
Love
Yeah.
slaves. Yeah, if love slaves were readily available, that may have been like there was no incentive to produce erotic video content
Yeah.
because you could just, for the same amount of time expenditure, you could just go down to the love slave room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But Jabed is like, oh, well, I think it's kind of hot in here. Zev goes, yeah, it gets very humid too. And Jabed goes, sticky heat. Zev's like, yeah, sticky. Some might say moist. Big shit. Yes,
They're
big,
leaning into it pretty
huge,
hard.
big, and very long. Okay. I don't think we're talking about the ship. I don't know. It just feels like maybe we're talking about something else because then Jabed goes, I like to lick it, and licks his bowl clean because Zev offers to take it and get him some more. And he's like, no,
Right.
I like to lick it. And then he sucks on Zev's thumb and makes noises. And Lorca's like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I think I'm feeling kind of sick. I'm just going to leave because this is all kind of gross. And Zevs looks over at Stanley and she's like, I think you should be on the bridge. And Stanley's like, I don't want to go to the bridge. Why do I need to go to the bridge? And she goes, so you can fly the Lexx. And he's like, but it can fly itself. And then she kicks him out of the room. She gets the dudes to kick him out of the room because she's like, this is an A, B, C orgy. What? This is
Get the D out of it.
Get your D out of it. And he does leave. But not without a parting shot. And this is a real low blow. Real low blow. Because he goes, you know, she used to be ugly. She was a
Right.
cow.
Shame on you, Stanley.
And she got transformed into a love slave. Stanley fucking Tweedle. That woman just stood up for you at your trial when she absolutely didn't have to. And as somebody pointed out in one of our comments on the YouTube channel, when she first meets Stanley Tweedle, she goes, are you the Stanley Tweedle?
So she already knows
So
about him.
she should have known exactly who Stanley Tweedle was. And she still stood up for him and tried to get Kai to kill everybody so they could just leave. And then he turns around, and the first time that she rejects him in favor of another man, he's like, you know, she used to be ugly. She was a cow. Not a good look. Not a good look.
No.
So Zev completely ignores him because she's like, what the fuck ever? I'm hot now. And she goes, I'm so sleepy. I think I might have to go down and lay down in my bed. And then she goes, we have a problem with cockroaches here. And cockroaches make me crazy. Could one of you come with me and check the mattress? And Jabed goes, captain's first. And then Zev walks over to Rexel and goes, navigators second. Cockroaches are a constant problem. Why not both at the same time? We can make this work. Zev could make this work.
Yeah.
And then
Maybe she just wants some practice first.
and she gets so close because she takes him back to her bedchamber and there's a cockroach, a real cockroach, by the way, on the bed. And
Yeah.
she picks it up and kisses it and then goes bloop, bloop, and flicks it away. And she's like, I'm programmed for pleasure and I want it, but I've never actually made love before. Will you teach me? And Jabed goes, higher education is my specialty. Now just relax. And this is when Zev gets everybody else, pretty much all the 3 people that were on the stripper have had their seizure, but now Zev gets her seizure. And she's like, oh, yeah, is that supposed to happen? Walk me through this.
Is this normal?
Is this part of the art of love? And then we go to Stanley going onto the bridge and Lorca is there. And this is his opportunity to get propositioned by Lorca and for Stanley to completely shut her down. He's like, oh, I need to go make rounds. Yeah, no, I need to go make rounds. And Lorca goes, it's been a while, hasn't it, Stanley? And he's like, oh, wow, what? She goes, you and I are in the same boat. We both deserve so much more than we get. Stanley's like, I mean, I do agree with that. However, I'm not doing this with you. Then we go back to Zev's bedchamber. And Zev is like, wow, I really must have gotten overexcited. So the question here is, do they switch their gender as soon as they have their spasm? Because if so, Zev has a penis directly after the spasm. And so why doesn't she go after Jabed just like she does Stanley?
In my head, it was more of a gradual thing because at this point, Jabed has not realized that something is missing.
Right. Would you notice immediately if your penis went missing?
If I was getting aroused, absolutely. It's extremely noticeable when things are happening. Yeah, him in the meat room with Zev, he's probably hard as a rock.
Yeah.
And he would notice if he wasn't. And so by the time he gets to Zev's room, pretty sure he's probably still got something there.
Okay.
The seizure is probably when the change starts to happen.
Okay. Because, well, I guess her voice isn't low either.
Yeah,
Because
and
she's still
I think
talking to him.
It goes bottom up.
Okay. Gotcha. Starts at your toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We cut back to Stanley. And Lorca's like, I mean, I know I'm not pretty. I mean, you are also not pretty. Yeah, he was soul ugly a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I agree. But my favorite part about this conversation is she goes, trust me, together we can unleash the dog. Stanley goes, the dog? She goes, yeah, the dog of lust, the one that howls inside. And then she picks up his hand and sticks it on her breast, which is the second time that's happened. And then we get the purple woo to let us know that Stanley is now infected.
Yep.
And honestly, it doesn't make a ton of sense that he would tell her no.
But
And
this is what I thought when he had just said earlier in the episode that he was flexible in his tastes.
yeah, every day could bring something different.
Right. And
Yeah.
he has to be ready for it to take advantage of all the amazing opportunities.
Right. Maybe
Why
he
would
doesn't.
he turn her down?
Maybe the wanting it is a turnoff. How much she wants to have sex with him. Honestly, his pickiness is the most unlikable thing about his character. The
Right.
fact that he's like, ew, not you. I'm so desperate for sex. I can't stop bothering Zev. But when sex comes knocking on my door, I'm particular.
Right. And it almost seems like Stanley and Zev should be like more opposite characters, where part of the dynamic is he really wants the sex with anything.
The sex. Yes.
And Zev is the only person around. And Zev is literally made for sex,
yeah.
but she refuses to do it with him. And so more like archetypal character attributes. Stanley is open to anything and ready to go. And Zev is the most desirable thing,
Yeah.
but super picky.
Right.
Right? So they're like opposites, opposed, which restricts them. Like, they're never going to do it together.
Right.
Like story arc wise or character arc wise. But in this moment, Stanley's finally picky,
Yeah.
which feels like a violation
And he
of
was
his
picky
character.
on the love liner too, where he
Yeah.
was like, no, not that one, which made a little bit more sense because he was expecting a selection.
Right.
Anyway, we go back to Zev's chamber and they have progressed to heavy petting. And they're like, oh, that's good. No, I like that. That's really great. And then Jabet is like, you're so beautiful. You're absolutely gorgeous. And Zev goes, and you're wearing too many clothes. So Jabet stops, slides his hand inside his trouser, and then screams. He's like, ah! Just like a girly scream, and runs away. Because his penis is gone. The most terrifying
Gone.
thing a man can think of. It's just gone. And Lorca and Stanley are back on the bridge. And at this point, Stanley's had his spasm. So he's slowly working his way around to kind of maybe saying yes to Lorca. A little bit, probably because he's realizing this is a good opportunity to get a consensual sex act done with someone. And also, it's probably supposed to be his slow transition into being a female. Because as soon as he becomes a woman, as soon as we all do our gender swap, it gets real stereotypy up in here.
Oh, yeah.
Because he becomes real submissive and passive and scared. And then all the women who become men become like sexual predators.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Lorca goes, here, would you like me to give you a cuddle? A cuddle will make you feel much better. And Stanley goes, oh, yeah, a hug would be really nice. Like, okay, I'm back to liking Stan. Even though he's doing this because he's supposed to be feminine right now. So they hug.
So my I guess generous interpretation of this wasn't that the writers were saying something like, oh yeah, men are inherently sexually predatory
Predacious.
and women are scared and submissive. It's, in my head, if you gave anyone a huge shot of testosterone, they would get aggressive if they weren't used to that as their baseline of testosterone.
Yeah.
And if you gave like a biological male like a huge like hormone treatment to bring all their hormones in line with like female baseline,
Yeah.
it would completely shift their perceptions. And so it's not so much that this is what men or women are. It's that they're experiencing huge hormonal fluctuations and their brains aren't used to it.
So you are generously assigning this as a side effect of the medicine and not a side effect of the gender.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's fine.
And I think that interpretation clears up a lot of the muddy waters
Yeah.
of
Because
the actions
they're
of the
hugging.
characters.
They're hugging. And then Lorca goes, Stanley, you tease. I'll give you a lot more than a hug. So he's leaning into this hug. And then Lorca's like, well, you can't stop once you start. Those are the rules.
Yeah.
You were leading me on. Because Stanley goes, no, I didn't mean that. She goes, yeah, you did. Come here, Stanley. Every single woman knows this interaction. And this is really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. Because it's that, oops, I let the guy hold my hand, or oops, I let the guy sit too close, or oops, I looked him in the eyes for too long. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, I asked too many direct questions. Oops, I accepted like a drink, or he paid for something for me, and now there's an expectation. And it was literally just a hug. It was literally just oh, I thought we were friends. I was letting you do a thing for me. So I didn't love this. This was a little rapey, but that's okay. I don't know how I would have taken this a week ago. I was a little offended by it, but I wasn't as like viscerally upset by it as I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this just again points back to why I think it's a good idea for us to take a break from Lexx, because I don't want to trash the show. I want to love the show and enjoy it and give it the context that it deserves. This was supposed to be a joke. It was a joke in 1999. It just doesn't feel like one right now. So Stanley runs off the bridge, and then Lorca spasms again, which I assume is like her final transformation into her beautiful male form.
Mm-hmm.
And then she runs after him, and Kai just walks out onto the bridge because he's been watching this entire thing, and he's like, the fuck just happened? And 790 goes, some days are good days indeed. Oh, and then we go back to Zev sitting in her bed because at this point Rexel and Jabed have run off. And so she's sitting there and she sticks her hand up under her skirt and then pulls her fingers out and sniffs them. She's like, and then she goes, does it smell like dick? So, I mean, I'm not saying there's not a smell, but like, I don't know that she would have enough experience with one to be like, wow, that really smells like, it smells like dick. And then her hands go back down there like, wow, really? And I'm not going to lie. If I've suddenly discovered I had a penis, I would probably do the same thing. Not the sniffing, but I don't know, let's see what this feels like.
Yeah.
It's there. Why not? It's funny how the women are all like, cool, I got one, let's use it. And the women are all, and the men who are now women are like, oh my God, no, this is horrifying. Where did my dick go?
Well, it's literally an external appendage.
Yeah.
So it's like a part of your body that's you're used to
It's like losing a finger.
modeling for interacting with the world.
Yeah.
Right? It's on your mind when you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is like losing a couple fingers.
Yeah.
Rather than gaining fingers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. But it's just funny.
Yeah.
That none of the guys are, well, you know what they don't get? Boobs.
I know.
The only thing that changes is there'd be no rest of the episode.
Maybe eventually they would get boobs.
Well, they're going to die in 60 hours, so it doesn't matter. But Rexel and Jabed run onto the bridge and they're like, I'm a girl. And now they have modulated up voices. They're like, I'm a girl. Don't just stand there. Help me. And they're like, what were we towing? What the hell is this doing to us? And Jabed goes, I'll tell you what it's doing to me. It turned me into a woman. And then Zev swaggers onto the bridge. She does the man walk.
Oh, yeah.
I've got something between my legs walk. And she talks and she's like,
hello, boys.
I don't know how I got it, but I intend to use it. And Jabed goes, oh no. And then he hides behind, or Rexel hides behind Jabed, and Kai's like, what is happening? Because he's just standing on the bridge watching the farce. Okay. That's what that's his life. And Zev goes, well, for a start, Zev's gonna get herself some ass. And Jabed goes, I can't. I'm traumatized. And Rexel goes, me too. And Zev goes, wait until you see the trauma. I'm packing. This is no less rapey, but I'll admit this is still a little bit funny. If you just turn off that 2024 part of your brain that's like, wee-oo, 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 it's funny. And she walks up and strokes Jabed's chin.
We've discussed this a few times on the Strange and Beautiful Book Club.
Yeah.
How the Bechdel test, which even Bechdel is like, no, that's not actually really a useful tool at all. Stop asking me about it. We prefer the gender swap test.
Yeah.
If you take two characters interacting or more characters interacting and you swap their genders, is it still a good scene?
Yeah.
That's kind of a test for, is this appropriate? And this is like you took horny Zev, like pushing herself on some guys.
Yeah.
And then you gender swap it. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we imagine when you do the gender swap. you get very different outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think of this as a side effect of the medicine and not as a commentary on male sexual predation, it's funny.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to think of this as a commentary about how men and women interact sexually, it gets less funny. So we'll just leave it as a side effect of the medication.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm just going to put a pin in that. I'm going to leave it right there. Because she goes, come on, sweet cheeks, drop them. And Jabed slaps her and actually makes her nose bleed, which is important because we needed that blood later.
Yeah.
Because we got to analyze it. And Jabed's like, your energy is too aggressive. You just want to use us and then throw us away. And Zev's like, yeah, but I'll use you good. I mean, they were going to use her.
Right. And
It was a mutual use situation.
right.
Yeah.
Now they're not used to their equipment
Their vulvas.
and other things.
Their vulva. Yes. Their vulvas. So, yeah, I imagine it would actually probably be a terrifying concept for a man to think of because you don't have like I suppose you could think of your anus, I suppose. Yes. But
Mhm.
if you are a man who engages mostly in heteronormative sex, the idea of
The only place anything is ever going in is my mouth, and the thing going in is food or drink.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at here. So it would be a terrifying, like, oh no, I'm going to get penetrated.
Yeah.
As much as I hate that word. Yeah. And so it must be like a, oh no, right? It's kind of like, if you've kissed the same person for 20 years, we kind of have a rhythm. So when you jokingly stick your tongue in my mouth instead of the other way around, I don't like it. That's not how we do this. So it's got to feel the same way, like, oh God, no, I'm being invaded,
Yeah.
So, okay, well, fine, whatever. And so she grabs at Jabed's crotch as they all run away. And 790 goes, oh, Zev, darling, sir, I don't care if you become a man on the outside. It's the inner man I love. Or woman, whatever. 790's pansexual, and I love it. 790's like, I don't care who you are. I love Zev. Well, there's a word for that. I don't know. There's a lot of labels. One of them is you're attracted to somebody's intellect, or their mind, or who they are. Like that.
Sapiosexual. I've heard that. I've heard sapio something. Or demisexual?
Demisexual is when you are only attracted to somebody after you form an emotional connection.
Emotional. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, there is one for the just internal, like specific identity rather than a vibe.
Yeah. And then 790 said, after 790 says that, Zev actually hears him and she goes, thanks, robot. I wish you had the equipment. I really do. I don't know if it's the man in me or the lizard in me, but suddenly I've gotten a lot less picky. And that's a good point, is we don't know how this drug affects someone who is part cluster lizard.
Right.
Which might explain her overwhelming predatory-like sex drive.
Oh, yeah, especially combined with her love slave physiology.
Yeah.
With the ramped up libido.
Right. There's a lot of complicated biological things happening with Zev, and then you introduce this, and apparently you get Andrew Tate. I don't know. So anyway, she goes, suddenly I've become a lot less picky, and then she looks over at Kai. She looks over at Kai, and she goes, up to a point. And Kai just gives her this smile, like, sorry. And then she turns around and goes, hey, don't start without me, girls, and chases after Rexel. And this is when Kai and 790 share a look like, all right, well, that was a little weird, right? Was that weird? Was that me or was that weird? And then they run off to go analyze the blood, which the only place we can analyze the blood apparently is in the cryo room.
Sure.
The console in the cryo chamber is really just like the Swiss Army knife of this, because it's the only interactable console, right? Because in the bridge,
in the bridge,
it's just the little hand thing that he does.
Verbal commands and the hand scanner. Yeah.
Right. So the only beep boop with buttons is down in the cryo chamber. And 790 says it's a man-made virus designed to transport simple genetic codes to reverse the sex of anyone who's given it. But they fucked it up and everyone's going to die in 60 hours of total cellular failure. So, a bit. And Kai goes, I assume that's why it became category 13. And then we cut to Lorca, who is hunting Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, Stanley, come out here. Something in my pants wants to meet you. And she pulls aside like a curtain, and Stanley is sitting in the shower with his hands over his crotch. And he's like, I'm a girl. And she goes, I know, it's okay, Stanley. And he's like, no, I've got girl parts. And she goes, oh, happy day. And then we cut back to Kai, and he's like, can we do anything to stop it? And 790's like, I mean, yeah, I could kind of figure it out. Eventually, I could create an antidote. Okay, how long? And 790 goes, with the facilities on board, 7 to 12 years. And Kai goes, well, then you should probably get started. Lexx? And then this is when the Lexx answers him, and she has a really high-pitched voice. She goes, yes, hello. And Kai's like, what happened to your voice? And she goes, I don't know. Do you mind if I ask you something? Do you find me, am I attractive? And Kai goes, you are beautiful. Good on you, Kai.
Yep. Luckily, he has no carbon or protein in his body for the virus.
He
to
probably doesn't even
interact
have cells.
with.
He's an idea. He's just a vibe.
He's an idea made concrete.
He's made of entirely of vibes. It's fine. With the exception of Stan's trial, I love the Kai character.
Yeah.
That episode, it's fine. It was like a dream sequence. We'll just leave it be. But you are beautiful as his immediate response, that was a good moment. I liked that moment. And then Lexx goes, thank you. My favorite part about Zev as a man is she does the lip curl, the John Wayne lip curl.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of John Wayne going on.
Yeah, she goes, buck up, little buckaroo, because Jabed is like, I'm gonna be sick. And Stanley starts backing away from Lorca, and he's like, no, it's wrong. And she goes, yes, it's right. He's like, no, please, I don't want to do it. And, hey, no means no, Lorca. And so she grabs at him, and Stanley is like, well, you know what, actually, you don't really feel all that bad. You're strong, you're sweaty. Oh, okay, just take me. And this is when Zev is like, I intend to. And she appears behind Lorca and knocks Lorca out. And then she's like, you're mine, Stanley Tweedle. This feels a little bit like Turnabout is fair play. Because he has done nothing but try to have sex with her for as long as they've been on the Lexx, which is who knows how long at this point.
Right.
And so as soon as she has a dick, she's like, guess what, Stanley? It's on. And he goes, I'm yours. And Zev goes, you ready? And Stan goes, no. She goes, well, I am. And that's what counts in this relationship.
Jeez.
And so she throws him down on the bed and they have sex. They have Zev sex, Zev man with Stan girl sex. I mean, what's the operating learning curve on a penis, honestly?
It's probably a lot more like coordination.
You know? I mean,
there's a lot of whole body rhythm stuff.
That you gotta.
And it takes a little while to get the hang of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of sensation. And maybe you wouldn't know how to moderate that. Although I'm sure what we're going for is not necessarily that Stan's pleasure was first and foremost on Zev's mind.
Absolutely.
But I'm just thinking, if I were for some reason to wake up with a penis, I'm sure there would be a lot of a learning curve, especially since she's never even interacted with one.
Right.
And Zev goes, you always wanted me and now you've got me. What's the difference? And Stanley goes, well, it's just not how I expected it. And she goes, yeah, well, me neither. And he goes, by the way, you're on the bottom, Mr. S. Tweedle. And Lorca wakes up and walks over to Zev's room and we hear, come on, baby. Oh, who's your daddy? I can't fucking with this part. Ah!
I wonder if they ad-libbed these lines.
They're just in the other room doing the like hand thing when you
Yeah. Yeah.
ah! But Lorca walks past Kai, who's also standing in the passageway, ostensibly listening to them get it on in the other room. And Stanley's
The
walking
dead do not eavesdrop.
Well, the dead do not give you privacy. I don't know. Because Stanley walks out and he's buttoning up his shirt and he goes, "Okay, Zev, thanks. Okay, no, I gotta go." So Stanley emerges from the chamber, pulling his uniform back on. And then Zev leans out and goes, "Don't leave. Make me something to eat first." I like this in a reclaimed power dynamic sense.
Mm-hmm.
In a, now I'm the one with the dick, so I'm going to do everything you do to me, and you'll see how you feel about it.
Right. But that imbalance kind of feels like the difference between vengeance and justice.
Yeah.
Where vengeance, you do back to your oppressor what they did to you. But justice is about like being the better person.
Yeah, but she goes even farther because Stanley never forced her, but she effectively forces Stanley.
Yeah.
So Kai is standing out there as Zev and Stanley are putting themselves back together, and Kai's like, "Yeah, the virus that changed your sex will also kill you within 60 hours." And Zev's like, "Well, that's not good, but it's good we got, this out of our system first." And Stanley's like, "Oh, okay." So they go down to the cryo chamber. There's only we had 3? And we just shot one into space. But we have 3 again. So it's cool. But he's like, "I'm going to put you guys in a cryo chamber. I'm going to get in a cryo chamber. We're just going to let the other people die because I am dedicated to justice." Okay? So just let the other people die.
Yeah.
But 790 takes one look at them and realizes they've had sex. And 790 goes, "Tweedle, you slut. What have you done?"
That feels like a commentary.
And you know what? I'm just going to leave that on the table. There's a whole buffet of discussion laid out for me with that one line, but I'm just going to, I'm going to look at it and then I'm going to let you all think about it and I'm just going to walk on. But Kai goes, "The development of an antidote to your condition will take many years. So we're going to put you guys in cryostasis to keep you from dying in the meantime." And 790 goes, "Correction, Zev will enter cryostasis, but Stanley must be killed and his corpse incinerated." And Zev goes, "Well, I do like being a man, but I'd rather be a live man." And then there's like a sound and this blue mist falls down and everybody's cured. Yeah.
Because the Lexx's immune system
Because
is...
the Lexx was like, "Oh, I figured that out. It's fine. I already fixed that problem." Because Lorca runs in and she's like, "Running away, ladies," because she's chasing Jabed and Rexel down the passageway because she wants to have sex with somebody and they're there and they have treated her like shit this entire time. So she's like, "Guess what, y'all? Turnabout's fair play." She goes, "You're going to lie down and spread him and I'm going to jump on and ride him." And Rexel goes, "You pig." And and Lorca goes, "Oink." Which is a repetition of our
Of what
commentary
Rexel did, yeah.
Yeah. But then the blue glitter flies around everybody. And then Stanley feels his crotch and smiles because he's got his tick back.
Yep.
Yeah. And Stanley goes, "I'm a man." And Zev goes, "And I'm not." And then Stanley's like, "I mean, what happened?" And Lexx goes, "I did not feel good. Now I feel better." And Kai's like, "Of course, Lex's immune system developed an antidote." And Stanley goes, "Oh, Lexx, you are one remarkable bug." And Lexx goes, "I love you too, Stan." Aw, it's a really sweet moment. Stanley goes, "I mean, yeah. I mean, it is sort of the 4th crew member."
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in the passageway, Jabed, Rexel, and Lorca are all back to normal. And Lorca's like, "Well, I'm glad that bit of fun is over." And then a random fat hillbilly in overalls appears behind them and is like, "Darlings, the fun's just beginning," and smacks him over the head. And they all scream.
Which is an appropriate place for us to Put Lexx on hold.
Because we're just going to leave that cliffhanger right where it is. Later, everyone's on the bridge, and there's just empty passageways on the view screen. And Lexx is like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I have no fucking idea what happened to the crew, Stanley. And Stanley's like, well, keep looking. He leans his head over on the like armrest of his pedestal. And Zev goes, so is that it? Am I no longer a virgin? And Kai's like, I mean, in a certain sense, that's correct. But you have experienced a temporarily anomalous condition in which the normal state of your genitalia remained intact. So, I mean, technically you're still a virgin. And Zev is like, well, I mean, that's something, I guess. And
Yeah.
Kai looks over at Stanley and goes, but Stan isn't.
But Stanley's had sex before.
Right,
so-
but he hasn't had a hymen to get broken before because all hail the holy unbroken hymen and its importance to everyone in all of human history.
Not.
I'm sorry, I had a lot. I had a. I'm just gonna.
You had a visceral reaction.
I had a very.
to that.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's
and then
fine.
we get my favorite scene, the ironic.
Yeah, the people, they're like,
conclusion.
emergency. This is Planet Pornos calling for men. We must have men. We want to lavish our sultry bodies upon you, reveling in the forbidden pleasures of the flesh. Please respond. Please respond. And they look at each other and they're like, that's just another porn video. And then they fly off. Actually, Stan goes, oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. Not falling for it this time. So he activates the little green thing and they fly away past a purple planet with 2 pink moons. And down on the planet, there's like a beach and a sea and deck chairs and a satellite dish and a bunch of women in silver bikinis. And they're like, we need men, old men, fat men, ugly men, any kind of men. Please save us. As like the Lexx flies slowly off.
Yeah. But we don't get a Mantrid.
No,
This
Mantrid
episode.
did not show up to eat the hot chicks.
He spared them.
Maybe Mantrid is now a larger hillbilly dude in overalls with a straw hat within a bad southern accent.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make a whole bunch of arm bots, how are they eating the planet? They're just arms.
Right?
Are they
know.
dismantling it?
I am confident they will explain every piece of lore behind how Mantrid is consuming entire planets.
Well, if you are known for anything, it is your misplaced confidence. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it. And I mean leave it because we're moving on. We're not moving on. We are going to come back to Lexx. I feel bad for the couple of people that have found this and commented and been like, oh my God, I'm so thankful. Like people have finally started covering Lexx. I've been waiting for this and I'm sorry. And if the world was a better place, I would continue doing Lexx. But I have to do something that will help me maintain my mental health. And that is Babylon 5 right now. And you know what? That's not saying we won't do Lexx episodes as time goes on. So do subscribe to our podcast because there's a chance we will get back to Lexx before we finish Babylon 5.
Yeah.
But I'm just not sure what the future. I'm just not sure what the future looks like because we have a very uncertain future right now. So I think we're just going to leave it there. I worship his shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Until next time, friends. Bye.
Bye.